Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Not Your Mother's Goose, the show where the stories of yesterday meet the sarcasm of today. We're back for a normal episode this time. In case you missed it on the last show, Maleficent edged out Scar to win our baddest of all time Tournament of Disney Villains by 6 votes. Though I do have to admit that one of our panelists elected to run his own vote between the final 4 villains with some of his co-workers, and not only did Scar win that one going away, but Maleficent finished last. So I guess it's just like when a different movie wins at the Golden Globes rather than the Oscars or something like that. Coming up today, we'll load up the wagon for a trip on the Oregon Trail, sit down for some curds and whey with Little Miss Muffet, and we'll check out a new movie before and after with Mulan Rouge. That Mulan. Before we get started, I don't try too hard to sell stuff on the show, but I do have something really exciting I want to tell you about today. The brand new Not Your Mother's Goose 2022 calendar is ready, and I really do think you'll like it. It's got all your favorite months like April and October, nearly all of the days of the week. Seriously though, it's cool. It's got 17 full-color Not Your Mother's Goose cartoons drawn by Rick Cunningham. Some of them are from the book, others are brand new that nobody's seen before. It really is fun. It'll make a great gift for anybody that likes a good laugh. So I hope you'll check them out. You can order directly from notyourmothersgoose.com. You'll have them in plenty of time for the holidays. If you have never seen Rick's cartoons, he does amazing work to bring these jokes to life, so please do give them a look. Now, in the spirit of that shopping, let's head ourselves over to Matt's General Store and load up our wagon. The Oregon Trail is up next. The Oregon Trail. So what did you do during lunch in 4th grade? And be honest, you're not fooling anyone here. You're not going to convince me you were out on the monkey bars working on your grip strength. What you were doing was slipping into the back of the classroom with me to play the Oregon Trail. Now, we will not be doing any history lessons about the real Oregon Trail here. If that's what you're looking for, you definitely have the wrong podcast. But I will gladly reminisce with you about the computer game, because this was the game of the day back in my school era. How did you measure the intelligence of someone in elementary school? It wasn't by whether they could do long division. It was whether they were smart enough not to ford the river just because it claimed the average depth was only 3 feet. Now, the premise of the game was pretty simple. Load up your wagon in Independence, Missouri, and travel the trail to the west. First, though, you had to pick your job, and that was critical. Did you want to be the banker, who had tons of cash and could just buy a bunch of crap at Matt's General Store, thus causing your wagon to tip over at the first river? Or you could be the carpenter, who was broke, but could theoretically fix the wagon wheel when it breaks after you thought it would be smart to drag race the banker to Soda Springs. Or did you want to be the social media influencer, whose main goal was to get to Fort Kearny where they have good Wi-Fi so you could post the TikTok of your snake bite? Once you had a job in a wagon, then you'd hit the trail in hopes of making it to Oregon before the inevitable blizzard that would arrive in about September. To do this, you'd select the grueling pace, which would all but guarantee a death from cholera before you got to Independence Rock. Actually, the real reason to pick the grueling pace was because that was the only way to finish the game before lunch was over and you had to go back to class. But whatever. Speaking of death, the other key factor was naming the people in your wagon, which was mainly done for humor when they eventually died. Snakebite, typhoid, exhaustion. You knew it was going to get somebody, and you just hoped it wasn't you. Do not give somebody the keys to the wagon without first selecting the designated dyer. I frankly remember that my golf coach was a frequent casualty back in the day. I do hope people on the real Oregon Trail fared better. While we're at it, that does bring to mind one of my favorite Oregon Trail memes. It's a text box that comes up under the stop and talk page that no one actually used during the game, but it would say something like, "You meet someone named Terry. You tell him he's ugly. Terry shoots you. You have died of dysentery." Now, there were other obstacles along the way, of course. We've mentioned the river crossing, where you'd better bring a lot of caulk or cash to take the ferry. The best part, though, was stopping to hunt, where your choices were to either shoot a squirrel that weighed about 2 pounds and was impossible to hit, or aim for the lumbering buffalo who took up half the screen and provided a semi-truck worth of meat, even though you could only carry 250 pounds back to the wagon. Still, tough call. If you made it to the end of the game, then you had 2 options. One was to take the toll road if you were the banker and flush with cash. The other was to hope you had an avid gamer somewhere with you in the computer lab who could help you run the controls and raft the Columbia River Gorge. This was kind of like playing one of those moving Mario Brothers levels where stuff just keeps coming at you, as in this case the gorge was full of rocks that would knock your wagon ass over tea kettle and yard sail your gear all over the screen. Then you'd get this helpful message saying something like, "You tipped over, you have lost 1 wagon, 4 oxen, 500 pounds of food, 1 toaster, and 1 Toro snowblower, and also everyone else in your party died. Now, let's go see how many points you scored." Remember back in the day when Clark Kent got a job at the Daily Planet so he could be in touch with all the latest news and immediately come to the rescue? Well, if he'd just worked for us, he could have rescued Rapunzel a lot faster than the prince. Let's see who else he might need to save today. Hamburglar hires Gloria Allred after arrest for 24th felony hamburglary. Emperor selling old groove on Craigslist. And breaking news from the world of gazillionaire aviation, Scrooge McDuck headed to outer space. Move over Branson and Bezos, there's a new billionaire joining the space race. Just months after those wealthy businessmen took trips to the edge of Earth's atmosphere, Scrooge McDuck is throwing his tail feathers into the ring as well. But Scrooge won't be traveling in a souped-up plane or a giant flying eggplant, instead planning to visit the depths of the unknown powered by only his own 2 wings. Quote, "It'll save me a ton of money on a launch site," the miserly Scrooge pointed out at a press conference, noting that he would probably just take off from the parking lot of the Duckburg Taco Bell. Scrooge noted that he plans to do all the flapping himself and has hired Orville from the rescuers for lessons in long-distance travel. He'll also take along a rocket pack that Launchpad McQuack worked up in his garage just to be safe. Aviation experts said that the addition of lead engineer Gizmo Duck to his technical team should give Scrooge the edge against an attempt from rival Darkwing in the battle to be the first duck in space. Pundits, however, said not to discount the chances of a surprise Donald Duck upset if Donald blows his top in frustration at Chip and Dale and rockets himself straight to the moon. We'll take a quick break now and find out what's new as Broadway starts to reopen.
Now open on Broadway. Straight from the 100-acre wood to the stage, it's the hit show that will leave you in tears. But maybe not in a good way. It's Eeyore the musical. That's right. From the producers that brought you Winnie the Pooh and the Zumba Cruise, Eeyore the musical takes on a darker tone and has already set records by employing 7 different therapists to meet with depressed guests in the lobby after the show. With lyrics from Oscar the Grouch and Don Rickles, you'll be literally crying in your seat as A.A. Milne's Downer of a Donkey comes to life on the big stage. The world's first musical written entirely in a minor key, Eeyore trudges through 37 scenes in just over 5 hours without an intermission. Featuring hits like Mostly Cloudy, Again, and I Think It's a Bunyan, you'll be on the edge of your seat wondering if the next song might finally be a showstopper, or might be enough that they just finally stop the show. Statler and Waldorf from The Muppet Show have been in the balcony since day one, and they call Eeyore the musical their favorite production since Fozzie Bear's one-man opera. So pin on your tail and slip that flask into your pocket, and then get your tickets to Eeyore the musical tonight.
You'll recognize that voice as Rapunzel from our Head & Shoulders, Knees & Toes shampoo ad, who does sound suspiciously like our villains expert that was very much pro-Cruella de Vil, a.k.a. Cousin Trish. Shampoo, theater, and Cruella. What a repertoire. Now we'll get back to the news. Asked by first grader for reading tips, Yoda says, "Phonics hooked on I got." Swiffer named title sponsor of Quidditch World Cup. And from our Road Construction Bureau, London Bridge falls on troll. A local troll is wishing he'd just continued posting mean comments on Twitter this morning, but instead finds himself recuperating in a nearby hospital after being pelted when London Bridge fell down on him under the weight of a giant goat. Todd the Troll recently moved to the area, settling into a humble home underneath the west end of London Bridge. Just 2 days after his arrival, a family of 3 billy goats touring Lake Havasu attempted to cross the span. Todd passed on the opportunity to eat either of the first two goats, instead opting to wait for the giant third brother to come trip-trapping across. As the enormous goat arrived, the bridge crumbled, falling down and leaving Todd with a broken collarbone and sprained horns. He's also rumored to have some concrete stuck in his beard. Quote, "Dude, my landlord said this place was safe," the troll protested of the den he had just leased. "I knew that bridge had issues before, but he told me they'd just come in with some pins and needles and built it up good. I guess next time I should get an inspection, or at least wait for the verse when the silver and gold show up." What is a tuffet? Okay, well, that basically sounds like someone buzzing in to answer a clue on Jeopardy, but it's actually a fair question. You don't generally hear ads from your local furniture outlet offering no money down and no interest for 24 months on discount tuffets. They might just say that people have no interest in tuffets, but that's not quite the same. The dictionary definition is, quote, "a low seat," which just sounds like something you'd buy along with a squatty potty, so that doesn't really clear anything up. So why don't we just accept from the outset that neither you nor I have any idea what a tuffet is? We do, however, know a grand total of one person who sits on one, and that's Little Miss Muffet. That name seems rather convenient, but I guess Little Miss Crazy Boy Decliner was already taken in the Mr. and Little Miss book series that we talked about a while back. As her tale begins, Miss Muffet takes a seat and starts mowing down a bowl of curds and whey, which is just a more disgusting means of saying cottage cheese. Of course, her peaceful time is quickly interrupted by a jackass pickup artist who sits down at the bar stool beside her, at which point Miss Muffet has no choice but to get up and leave. Probably because the dude told her she had a nice tuffet. Of course, it's actually a spider that frightens Miss Muffet away, though frankly that makes her response seem equally reasonable. It's unclear to me whether this spider might be related to the Itsy Bitsy Spider, or whether Miss Muffet was required to do that finger-to-thumb hand motion from the song that looks like some sort of sobriety test for 7-year-olds. Also, the internet has its own speculation about who the spider might represent. You can look that up yourself. But what I find more interesting is the claim that this story might be about a real person from the 1600s named, I kid you not, Patience Muffet. Patience Muffet. That would make for a fun year in 3rd grade. Or if we're getting paged at the airport. "Patience Muffet, please pick up the white courtesy phone." On the other hand, I will acknowledge that if the Beatles got the song Dear Prudence out of knowing Prudence Farrow, then Patience Muffet isn't that far away. Maybe we should just call Paul McCartney. Mulan Rouge. It's movie before and after time again, and for this go-around you're going to have to request a spelling, since we're headed to the ticket counter to request 2 for the matinee of Mulan Rouge. But this time it's M-U-L-A-N, and Rouge with an exclamation point afterwards, since ostensibly the folks who wrote the title for the real M-O-U-L-I-N Rouge exclamation point are the same ones that wrote Airplane exclamation point. And stop calling me Shirley. We meet young Mulan and her family, and things are not looking good as we get underway. The Huns are about to invade the homeland, and the locals are hoping to come up with any way to head them off. But they hatch a brilliant plan. They'll write their own stage musical for the local theater, a production so amazing that the invaders will throw down their weapons and get in line for seats. Think of it as Hamilton starring Attila. Soon the show is ready, and it's time to cast the production. But that's where trouble lies ahead. Mulan knows that the producers plan to conscript her aging father into the lead role, unaware that in his old age he can no longer hit a high F. Plus, the kick line is just totally out of the question. Mulan decides that she can save the day by subbing into the starring role instead. And thanks to some interesting vocal lessons from Mushu the talking and now singing dragon, Mulan wins the role. The show is a story of intrigue and drama, as the production lures a packed house of Huns into the theater. After Mulan's stunning performance, Mushu emerges on a Wile E. Coyote-style rocket, breathes a little fire, and soars through the audience. His flaming ride ignites fireworks hidden throughout the balcony, and as he soars off to safety, the Huns are obliterated in a pyrotechnic spectacular. Mulan then returns a hero, and in a major improvement over Nicole Kidman's version, spoiler alert here, does not die of tuberculosis. Instead, she marries Obi-Wan Kenobi, and gets ready for a crossover appearance in the Star Wars universe, which will be coming soon to Disney+. Tom the Piper's Son. Okay, before we start, I just have to tell you, every time I hear that can, all I can think of is the old Crazy Calls answering machine messages from, 1989. I know in reality the song is a classic piece from Offenbach. They used it in Mulan Rouge, but all I hear is, leave your message at the tone, leave your message, da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Anyhow, just a few quick thoughts here on the world's premier pig thief, Tom the Piper's Son. And actually, not so premier, since after TTTPS stole the pig, the next bit tells us that Tom ended up on an episode of Cops and pretty much got busted. The rhyme doesn't end well for anybody involved in reality once you get past those first two lines. Yeah, Tom the Piper's Son stole a pig and away did run, but then the pig was eat, nice grammar, and Tom was beat, oops, which sent him crying down the street. Now, I actually was sad to learn that this story is probably not about stealing a real live pig. I don't know about you, but I've always had this vision of some kid awkwardly running down the road carrying a squealing Wilbur out front, kind of like an oinking sack of potatoes. But I guess not. And while we're on the subject, I've actually always kind of felt for Tom, since I could see how being a piper's kid could drive you to porky theft. I live in a town with an awesome Scottish festival every year. They have pipe bands and dancing and all kinds of stuff. My sister actually did Highland dancing growing up. Bagpipes are one of the coolest instruments ever and one of the most impressive to watch being played. It's like you inflate the bag from one of those handheld Dirt Devil vacs, and the next thing you know, it's playing a song from the Highlands. It's magic. But with that being said, listening to someone practice the bagpipes, that might be a little bit much around the house. I'm reminded of when I went to Scotland with my family as a kid, and someone who was apparently not such a bagpipe fan told us, seriously, quote, in Scotland, the definition of a gentleman is someone who knows how to play the bagpipes, but doesn't. Ouch. Anyway, looping back, I guess the pig involved here is not a pig at all, nor is it the slang term pig used for that giant propane tank in the backyard. This pig, apparently, is some sort of apple pastry, so definitely try rolling into your local Dunkin' Donuts and ordering one pig the next time you have a chance. Just remember to pay for it. Fairy tale typos. Now, I realize you probably didn't tune into the show expecting to get homework. That's why I've saved this for the end. But I need your help. I have a project for you. We're going to do a new segment on the show for you, and it's called the Fairy Tale Typo. This came about pretty much exactly how you would expect. It was me trying to type in the name of some fairy tale, hitting the wrong key, and accidentally creating something new that could be its own story in the process. Something like, say, Goldilocks and the Three Bears. It turns out, though, if you actually try to make these mistakes, or if you just text like certain members of my family, you could come up with a lot of options in a hurry. Pimple Simon is just one error away. And that's where I want to enlist your assistance to help me come up with some of these. I want your best fairy tale typos. Take the name of a fairy tale or a nursery rhyme, change one letter, and make up the title of a new story. You only get to change one, though. That means Jack Splat is allowed. Little Bo Poop is not. Actually, who are we kidding? I have the maturity of a 9-year-old. Little Bo Poop is fine. If you want to come up with that, go for it. You can also change the order of the letters if you'd like, since the Gingerbeard Man would certainly get the job done here. So anyway, start changing things around and see what you can create. If you think of one, go to Not Your Mother's Goose on Facebook and leave it as a comment. We'll have a pinned post. Or email it straight to me at Topher, that's Topher, at notyourmothersgoose.com. I will compile all the good stuff, we'll list them off on the show, so your idea might make it on the air, and maybe I'll even give out a prize or two if there's some particularly good stuff. After that, I'll take some of the best ideas and maybe even write actual stories. For instance, the Oregon Trail, like we just covered, that might turn into the Oregon Trial, a riveting tale about a murder trial following the death of a wagoneer who suspiciously died of exhaustion after singing 99 bottles of beer on the wall all the way from South Pass to Fort Boise. Anyhow, start changing your letters around. Send those ideas my way, either via Facebook or to topher@notyourmothersgoose.com. My only advice, don't use little Tommy Tucker. That's the whole kit and caboodle for this week on the show. Andrew Mitchell and Rapunzel's Jukebox will be back next time. Andrew's got a bunch of things he's working on, so I'm as curious as you are to hear what he comes up with next. In addition, we'll bust out the broom and the bucket and take a hike to the well with Fantasia, and we'll see how we all do with the fairy tale typo submissions. Who knows where that'll go. Remember, though, post your ideas to the Not Your Mother's Goose Facebook page or email them directly to me at Topher, Topher, at notyourmothersgoose.com. Also, don't forget to visit notyourmothersgoose.com where you can check out those brand new 2022 calendars I was telling you about. For now, thanks so much for listening and submitting your ideas. We've got lots more fun stuff percolating, but that's all I can tell you for now. Come back next time for more details. In the meantime, I'm Topher Goggin. The goose is loose. Have a happy Halloween, and I'll see you in November on Not Your Mother's Goose.